What we currently know about the iPhone 14 Pro. Here are all the speculations and leaks related to the iPhone 14 Pro. With a probable design that differs noticeably from the iPhone 13 Pro, Apple's iPhone 14 Pro is expected to be the device that shakes up the iPhone lineup. The death of the notch to the reinstatement of Touch ID have all been mentioned in the rumors thus far. Even if the iPhone 13 Pro is excellent, there is debate as to whether it represents a significant advancement over the model it replaces. Additionally, since the release of the iPhone 11 Pro, the iPhone hasn't advanced significantly. It appears that Apple will need to bring its A game to the iPhone 14 Pro in the face of fierce competition from devices like the Samsung Galaxy S22 Ultra and the Google Pixel 6 Pro. Our comparison of the iPhone 14 Pro Max and Samsung Galaxy S22 Ultra has more information on that conflict. Fortunately, based on the leaks and speculations we have heard thus far, Apple's next Pro model may be doing that. And the iPhone 14 Pro could differ significantly from the other iPhone 14 models in several significant ways. Here's everything we currently know about the iPhone 14 Pro and what we anticipate learning. The most recent speculations regarding the iPhone 14 Pro. In a recent article, Mark Gurman of Bloomberg described an update that will outperform the iPhone 14 Pro. Here are all the alleged colors for the iPhone 14, as well as our forecasts. It's possible that this social media post gave up the location of the iPhone 14 series batteries. Put September 13th on your calendars. We've included the most recent rumors to give you an idea of the iPhone 14 announcement and release date. Benchmarks purportedly taken from the iPhone 14 Pro demonstrate the A16 Bionic Chip's expected power improvement. iPhone 14 Pro rumored release date and price. Based on all the current speculations, we predict the iPhone 14 series will debut on September 13th. Pre-orders for the iPhone 14 range are then anticipated to open the Friday after the Apple event, September 16th, with the devices likely going on sale a week later, on Friday, September 23rd. This would occur 10 days following the alleged Apple event. Somewhat trustworthy leaker leaks 3 of the 4 iPhone 14 versions, according to Apple Pro, are expected to see price increases, but this is undoubtedly just a rumor. If accurate, the iPhone 14 Pro would cost $1,099, which is $100 more than the iPhone 13 Pro's starting price of $999. And the price of the iPhone 14 Pro Max may rise similarly, reaching $1,199. Anyone trying to obtain a high-end next-generation iPhone 14 would undoubtedly feel the pinch from this somewhat large jump in the launch pricing. Shadow Leak, a different leaker, stated on Twitter that he anticipates the ordinary iPhone 14 Pro will cost $1,099 as well. iPhone 14 Pro style. The iPhone 14 Pro may undergo significant alterations, according to a set of renderings presented by tipster John Prosser that are purportedly based on leaked information. 3 cameras are seen flush with the rear of the iPhone 14 Pro in Prosser's renderings. However, if that sounds appealing, you could be let down by other competing schematics, which depict the iPhone 14 Pro versions as resembling their iPhone 13 predecessors. The iPhone 14 Pro reportedly features a larger version of the elevated camera array and is 0.2 mm thicker than the iPhone 13 Pro and iPhone 13 Pro Max. The camera module is expected to grow in size, according to some rumors. According to reputable Apple analyst Ming-Chi Kuo, this is necessary since a 48MP camera requires a bigger module. In order to better match the curved edges of the new module, according to another source, the corners of the iPhone 14 Pro, but not the Pro Max, will be rounded. The elimination of the now famous display notch is one of the other significant design improvements suggested by several iPhone 14 Pro rumors. Display researcher Ross Young anticipates Apple will provide both a punch hole and a pill-shaped cutout for Face ID, or essentially 2 holes. According to speculations from Everything Apple Pro, this design appears to be finalized at this point. With what looks to be a supply chain leak photo displaying the display panels for each of the 4 iPhone 14 versions, these claims gained more credibility. The iPhone 14 Pro and iPhone 14 Pro Max appear to be prepared to do away with the notch in favor of a mix of a pill-shaped cutout and what looks to be a punch-hole camera or sensor, while the iPhone 14 and iPhone 14 Max appear likely to preserve the display notch. The prospect of an iPhone 14 Pro with twin camera cutouts has once again been pounded home by young and analytical company display supply chain consultants. However, the normal iPhone won't have a notch-free display for another year, which adds to the allure of going pro with the next iPhone. We now have yet another preview of what the iPhone 14 Pro may look like with a notch-less design according to a new set of CAD renderings. The rather asymmetrical appearance appears quite un-Apple, but it is unmistakably theirs. Some iPhone 14 mock-ups produced by Alibaba and published by Makotakara give us the greatest idea of what all the design revisions have resulted in. In the case of the iPhone 14 models, in addition to the two cutouts on the front display, you can also see the larger camera module. According to Makotakara, this larger module prevents iPhone 13 Pro covers from fitting the iPhone 14 Pro. iPhone 14 Pro Usbc. According to some reports, Apple may eventually switch to USB-C ports with the iPhone 14 Pro, which would make sense given how many of its products currently support USB-C. More recent speculations, however, suggest that Apple will continue to use Lightning rather than USB-C while switching to improved Lightning connectors with faster USB 3.0 data transmission. That occurs at a time when the EU is getting closer to making USB-C the default charger for portable electronics like phones. For some users, the iPhone 14 Pro's USB-C port would be an essential feature. In fact, considering that it might degrade over time, the Lightning connection is possibly the weakest aspect of the iPhone. This might make charging your phone quite challenging. Unfortunately, considering how well established the standard is and how extensive its network of accessories is, Apple is unlikely to forsake Lightning unless absolutely necessary. However, Ming-Chi Kuo believes that Apple won't make the move to USB-C for the iPhone until the latter half of 2023. If he is right, as a recent Bloomberg article implies he is, then the iPhone 15 will be the first device to officially support USB-C. iPhone 14 Pro display. One of the biggest upgrades of the iPhone 13 Pro delivered was a 120Hz dynamic refresh rate display. Thanks to the use of an LTPO panel, the screen could go from 120Hz to as little as 10Hz when a fast refresh rate was needed, and thus that helped save on battery life. According to some rumors, the iPhone 14 Pro could build upon this and scale down to as little as 1 Hz, reducing the power drain of a display. And this could enable the reported use of an always-on display. Long rumored to be an upcoming feature for next-gen iPhones, Bloomberg's Mark Gurman has claimed the iPhone 14 Pro will finally get always-on display and it'll be used to show weather, calendars, stocks, activities, and other data on the lock screen, with the low refresh rate helping preserve battery life. In contrast, the standard iPhone 14 models are now tipped to get a 90Hz display, which would be an upgrade over the 60Hz of the iPhone 13, but not quite up there with the Pro phones. As for screen sizes, according to Ross Young, the iPhone 14 Pro could increase in size from 6.06 inches to 6.12 inches, and the iPhone 14 Pro Max from 6.68 to 6.69 inches. This will apparently be because of rumored slimmer bezels and new notch design. iPhone 14 Pro cameras. The iPhone 14 Pro is expected to use the same three cameras as previous Pro models, a primary, ultra-wide, and telephoto array, so don't expect a significant change in that regard. That's not a terrible thing, considering that Apple phones frequently appear on our list of the best photography phones. The iPhone 14 Pro, meanwhile, is said to include a 48MP primary camera, which would finally represent a departure from the 12MP sensors Apple has relied on for years. Having more megapixels to work with will definitely offer the iPhone 14 Pro greater scope when it comes to processing light and details. We could be reaching a point where megapixels count once more. While Cupertino's computational photography is some of the best available, but a regular Apple tipster has the standard iPhone 14 models tipped to stick with 12MP cameras, with only the Pro models expected to get a 48MP main camera. Having more megapixels to work with will definitely offer the iPhone 14 Pro greater scope when it comes to processing light and details. We could be reaching a point where megapixels count once more. While Cupertino's computational photography is some of the best available, but a regular Apple tipster has the standard iPhone 14 models tipped to stick with 12MP cameras, with only the Pro models expected to get a 48MP main camera. No changes have been touted for the ultra-wide camera, but we'd be surprised if some effort wasn't made to improve the field of view and help remove some edge distortion. And there's scope for the telephoto camera to get a zoom boost, as an Apple patent points toward the company working on a periscope-style zoom camera. If such a feature was going to debut in an iPhone, it would be for the iPhone 14 Pro. But to muddy the waters, Apple Oracle Ming-Chi Kuo claims the periscope camera won't appear until the iPhone 15 in 2023. Analyst Ming-Chi Kuo claims all models of the iPhone 14 will get an upgraded front-facing camera. It's looking like this will involve a new wider aperture, a more complex 6-part lens, and the addition of autofocus for the first time. Together, this should allow the iPhone selfie snapper to take brighter photos that are easier to shoot thanks to the autofocus, and that will be less prone to distortion. iPhone 14 Pro specs and battery life. The A16 Bionic processor, which is said to have better performance overall than the A15 Bionic, is anticipated to replace the A15 Bionic with the iPhone 14 Pro series, even though the iPhone 14 Pro variants will have a new A16 processor. Leaker Shrimp Apple Pro asserts that their sources have told them that they would still use the 5nm production process. The Pro's performance advantage over the ordinary iPhone 14 devices may be marginally lessened as a result. However, compared to the A15 Bionic, the performance of the CPU, graphics, and brain processing will likely be significantly higher on the iPhone 14 Pro. It may not be immediately obvious how much of an impact it will have on the typical user. This is confirmed by a second Shadow leak release. Moreover, market research company TrendForce asserts that the iPhone 14 Pro and Pro Max will be the only devices to include the A16 Bionic opens in new tab. This is all conjecture at this point, but it's possible that Apple's supply chain was hampered by the severe chip scarcity of the previous 2 years. According to a different source, the A15 Bionic technology that powers the iPhone 13 Pro models from this year may be used in the iPhone 14. According to teardowns, the iPhone 13 and iPhone 13 mini employ 4GB of RAM, whereas that chip has 6GB of RAM. Therefore, while not the same as a complete chip change, that would be sort of an upgrade. Storage will probably increase to 1TB. However, there have been no solid storage rumors for the iPhone 14 Pro yet, according to a Weibo insider who claims to be familiar with the iPhone 14 family's battery capacity. All models aside from the iPhone 14 Pro Max will see a minor rise in size. There is some shrinkage of the 14 Pro Max, but hopefully not enough to affect the battery life of the device as a whole. Inr Battery Test, which has the phone continuously refresh web pages via a cellular connection until it runs out of power, we'd be sure that the iPhone 14 Pro would match or surpass the 11 hours and 42 minutes the iPhone 13 Pro achieved. We anticipate the iPhone 14 Pro Max to perform similarly to or better than the iPhone 13 Pro Max, which achieved a long 12 hours and 16 minutes. Apple boosts chip and phone efficiency. As for 5G, we're expecting the iPhone 14 Pro to use a new smaller 5G modem chip. The smaller size should mean it takes less power to run, and that there could be extra room for the battery to expand into. That would mean the already impressive battery life of the iPhone 13 can be improved upon even more. Sadly, it appears like Qualcomm's latest 5G CPU, the Snapdragon X70, may not be compatible with the iPhone 14 Pro. The first of its type 5G AI processor will be included in the chip, enabling the modem system to employ artificial intelligence to improve a phone's antenna and better control 5G beams flowing to and from a 5G phone. Although AI can also assist control sub-6 GHz 5G signals, Qualcomm believes it will be especially valuable for mmWave-based 5G networks in settings like stadiums and arenas. The iPhone 14 Pro could get satellite network connection in addition to cellular and Wi-Fi connectivity. In the lead-up to last year's election, that aspect first became apparent. iPhone 13 launch. While the capability didn't arrive in time for those phones, reliable tipsters say emergency satellite communications are a possibility for the iPhone 14 models. The idea is that when you're in an area without good cellular or Wi-Fi connectivity, you can send text messages to emergency services over satellite networks, alerting them to your location. iPhone 14 Pro Outlook. The Pro versions are expected to represent a true development of the iPhones we've seen over the previous several years, thus the iPhone 14 Pro may be the device many of us have been waiting for. Although the iPhone 14 won't seem much different from the iPhone 13 or 12, we believe it will establish a design language and feature set that will serve as a model for future iPhones. Here is what the iPhone SE 2022 has to say about the iPhone 14 now that it has been released. No notch, Touch ID, higher megapixel primary camera, USB-C connector, or any other feature could significantly alter the iPhone as we know it. This would also be in turn have the effect of setting the standard for other smartphones to follow if they wish to win a spot on our best phones list.